Hey, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really fascinating essay by Paul Graham called The Brand Age. And it all starts with this incredible story about an entire industry that pretty much overnight just almost completely vanished.
Okay, so I want you to picture this. It's the early 1970s. For like 100 years, the Swiss watch industry has been the absolute undisputed king of timekeeping. I mean, nobody could touch them. And then, all of a sudden, they find themselves sailing straight into a perfect storm.
So this industry, which seemed totally invincible, right? It gets hit by three separate disasters all at once. First, the Japanese start making better mechanical watches. Yeah, better. Then, the invention of the quartz movement makes super high accuracy incredibly cheap, which kind of makes the whole complex mechanical thing almost pointless. And then, to top it all off, a huge shift in global currency makes Swiss watches almost 3 times more expensive overnight. I mean, it was just an absolute bloodbath.
And this is where the story gets, well, really strange. So, just like you'd expect, sales completely fell off a cliff. We're talking down by almost 2/3. So you'd think their revenue would just crater, right? But nope. Instead, after this little dip, it skyrockets.
So what happened? How is that even possible? How did an industry on the very brink of death suddenly become more profitable than ever? Well, the answer reveals this really powerful force that honestly shapes almost every single product you and I buy and use today. Okay, so the answer is what we're calling the Great Pivot. See, the companies that survived this thing basically split into 2 groups, each with a completely different strategy. One of those strategies failed spectacularly. And the other? Well, the other one basically created the entire modern luxury world as we know it today.
So, check this out. On one side, you've got Omega. These guys were the hardcore engineers, the nerds of Swiss watchmaking. Their answer to more accurate watches? We'll just build an even more accurate mechanical watch. But it was too complex, it was fragile, and it totally backfired, destroying their reputation. By 1981, they were insolvent. Then you've got Patek Philippe. They did something completely different. They pretty much gave up on the performance war. Instead, they redesigned the outside of the watch, the case. They pivoted from performance to distinction.
And this whole situation just perfectly illustrates Paul Graham's central idea. He says, brand is what's left when the substantive differences between products disappear. Think about it. When technology makes performance cheap, when anyone can make a watch that tells perfect time, what's left to compete on? Just brand. Patek taught it, Omega didn't. And that mistake cost them everything.
What Patek Philippe did was honestly genius. By creating these really distinct, iconic cases, like the Golden Ellipse and later the Nautilus, they did something amazing. They took their brand from this teeny tiny, almost unreadable name on the dial, we're talking just 8 square millimeters, and they expanded it to the entire face of the watch, a massive 800 square millimeters. Suddenly, the watch itself was the logo.
But here's the really crucial part of all this. This big pivot to brand, it wasn't free. It came with a pretty big cost. And according to Graham, that cost is often good design. In fact, he argues that branding and design are fundamentally opposing forces. They're basically opposites.
So here's how he explains it. Think of good design as being centripetal. It pulls inward toward the center. It's trying to find that one single optimal answer to a problem, kind of like science does. But branding is centrifugal. It pushes outward, away from the center. It has to be distinctive. It has to be different from the competition, even if that means it's not the best solution.
And once you get this idea, you start seeing this conflict absolutely everywhere. You know those early Patek branded watches? To get that sleek, unique shape, they had these tiny little crowns that were a total pain to wind. Or think about why so many luxury watches today are just huge. It's not because that's better design for telling time. It's because a bigger watch is a bigger billboard for the brand. It's no longer form follows function. Now, it's form follows brand.
Okay, so this fundamental conflict between design and brand, it really helps us understand the world we're all living in right now, an era that Paul Graham calls the brand age.
So you might be thinking, okay, why does a 50-year-old story about Swiss watches matter to me today? Well, because it's not just a quirky story. It's basically a blueprint for what happens in almost every industry. See, technology is this relentless force that makes performance cheap.
It takes things that used to be really hard and expensive and makes them easy and available to everyone. And that means every industry sooner or later faces its own quartz crisis.
I mean, just think about the modern SUV. As Graham points out, it's basically a luxury Jeep, right? A tool that was once defined by what it could do, its rugged function, has been totally transformed into a status symbol. It's a brand statement. You see the same thing in software, where a simple, useful tool gets bloated with branding and a slick interface that doesn't actually make it work any better. It's the exact same pattern, playing out over and over again.
And this whole dynamic has led to a really strange world. For one thing, most of those historic watch brands you see, they're what you could call zombie brands, just names owned by a handful of giant corporations. And the market itself has gotten bizarre. You can't just walk in and buy the most popular watch. Nope. Brands create this artificial scarcity, making you get on these multi-year waiting lists, sometimes even forcing you to buy other stuff you don't want first. It gets crazier. They even police their own customers, buying back watches on the secondary market just to track down and blacklist anyone they think is a flipper.
And as Paul Graham puts it, this is what happens when the need for function disappears. The constraints that used to matter are gone, and all you have left is brand. And he says when you have a world defined only by brand, it's going to be a weird, bad world. The rules of the game just aren't about making the best product anymore. It's all about manipulating perception, status, and scarcity.
So yeah, that can all sound a little bit depressing, right? But Graham doesn't just leave us there. He actually offers a really simple but powerful way to think about navigating this world.
He says the way to find golden ages isn't to go looking for them. It's by following interesting problems. Basically, the antidote to this whole weird world of brand is to just ignore it. Instead of chasing status or the latest trend, he suggests we should just chase good, genuinely interesting problems. Because that's where real value gets created. And that's where the most rewarding work is always found. So, that leaves us with a question. In a world that seems more and more dominated by brand, what interesting problem are you working on? Because if you focus on that, you'll naturally find yourself surrounded by other smart, driven people doing the same thing. And maybe, years from now, when you look back, you'll realize you weren't really living in the brand age after all. You were actually living in a golden age that you helped create.